On the program, we begin our conversation with the growing controversy around Nigeria's electoral reform process. Despite adjustments to the much disputed Section 60, subsection 3 of the 2026 Section 603, subsection 3 of the 2026 Electoral Amendment Bill, opposition parties and civil society groups across Nigeria have continued to express their discontent with how things are playing out. Of course, a lot more to come in the weeks and months ahead as the Nigerian Senate moves towards harmonizing what it has presented over the last 48 hours, alongside that of the House of Representatives, culminating in what will become the newly amended Act for Nigerian elections going forward. But what is all this fallout about, and what are some of those concerns that still permeate public discourse regarding the 2027 general elections? We'll be unpacking it with someone who also has a lot of political interest about this issue, the Publicity Secretary of the ADP, the Action Democratic Party. Dr. Sani Dawop will be giving us perspective to this one. But before we get into all of that conversation, let's bring you up to speed with the day's latest developments in politics.
The United States has proposed targeted measures including visa bans and asset freezes against individuals and groups accused of violating religious freedom in Nigeria under the Nigeria Religious Freedom and Accountability Act of 2026. On Tuesday, U.S. Congressman Rep. Rilimo announced on X the introduction of the bill. It's co-sponsored by Rep. Chris Smith. The draft legislation names former Kano Governor Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, Fulani ethnic and nomad militias, and associations such as the Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria and the Miyetti Allah Kautal Hore as subjects of the proposed sanctions. A crisis in the Labour Party LP deepened Tuesday night. A faction loyal to former National Chairman Barrister Julius Abure says it has regained control of the party's National Secretariat in Abuja from the camp of Senator Esther Nadi Usman. In a statement by National Publicity Secretary Obiora Ifo, the Abure faction claimed that Usman's group had earlier entered the Utako facility around 1 a.m., accessing offices including those of the National Chairman and National Secretary. Senator Seriake Dixon, representing Bayelsa West, has urged Nigerians to make sure their votes are counted in elections. And at Tuesday's statement, the former Bayelsa governor, also on the Senate's Electoral Committee, said the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) can transmit and upload results electronically nationwide. INEC says it can transmit election results nationwide, and we believe them. Nigerians must insist their votes are transmitted and counted transparently, Dixon said. An explosion suspected to be from an improvised explosive device IED hit the Bayelsa State Secretariat complex in Yenogua early Wednesday around 6 a.m. Security operatives rushed to the scene and restricted movement in and out of the complex while safety checks were done. The Bayelsa State Police Command said the blast caused no casualties or building damage.
Some of the day's latest political stories there, and we'll be touching base with the issues around electoral reform, the controversy or the saga that is unfolding before Nigerians, the interests that have been clashing over the last couple of weeks, especially in the wake of the planned vote by the Nigerian Senate, which has, by the way, formed a 12-man committee to harmonize their own version of the bill alongside that of the House of Representatives, which has already been passed since last year. But there is obviously variations between what the Nigerian Senate wants as far as electoral amendment is concerned and what the House of Representatives had also passed. Joining the conversation tonight is ADP's Dr. Sani Dawop. Doctor, it's good to see you this evening. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you very much, Abdullahi.
Right, we've seen some of your colleagues in politics take to the streets on Tuesday and on Wednesday, and I mean Monday, Tuesday, and on Wednesday. Partly Wednesday, mostly, not as much. But we saw big names join the rally on Monday. People like Peter Obi, for instance. Day 2, we saw someone like Amici join the rally. But most notably is the fact that there seems to be this groundswell of support for the right thing to be done. What do you make of what has played out this week, and what does that say about how high the stakes are going into 2027?
Okay, thank you very much, viewers. Let me just clarify something. Yes, I'm the National Publicity Secretary of the Action Democratic Party, but I'm here actually, the views I'm going to express are actually my own views, not officially the views of the party. I thought I should make that very clear. But I'm a politician, so I mean, at any time, at anywhere, I can always express my own views. More so, I've been a governorship candidate of the party in Plateau State. And I've been in politics since 1992. So I can tell you that, yes, there are a lot of things to discuss. Now, coming back to the issue of the week, or the issue trending concerning the Senate saga on the amendment of the Electoral Act 2022, the best thing to do is actually to listen to the people and also express those views when laws are made. And that is the essence of representation. Very unfortunately, of course, I know there have been some public gatherings, forum to discuss all the amendments in the last 6 months, especially. Even the opposition, the civil society have participated in all this process. So at the end of the day, it is expected that those views expressed there actually should have been what, would have been presented. But to the contrary, especially the Senate is trying to do something, and that's why it's generating all this brouhaha. That's nothing else other than that. And I think the only pathway to take is to take the path where the Nigerians speak most. And that is the essence of representation and legislation.
And what do you make of the lawmakers' points of view? Because to be fair to the Nigerians, and not all of them think alike, there is some division within the ranks of legislators, especially in the red chamber, who see things differently. However, what played out on Tuesday this week seems to suggest that there's been some sort of concession about electronic transmission of the result, albeit one that many have criticized because of the alternative that has been put there, which is like a caveat to say that if it doesn't work electronically, there's always the manual option. What do you think the legislators, what do you make of the arguments made by the legislators for or against, or those who are in between both options?
Well, you see, when you are making a law, you have to be unambiguous. It has to be clear. There must be clarity in the law. Where there is subjection to various interpretations, that law, right from the time you are enacting it, is already faulty. So it behoves on the Senate that when they are passing this, and also the National Assembly, as a body, they must make sure that the laws are very, very clear. That there's nowhere you are doubting it's either A or it's either B. It's clear it must be either it is A or it is B, not A or B. No, that doesn't hold.
Some of them say that Nigerians are oversimplifying what the reality could be on election day, for instance, that if only electronic transmission is permitted by law, then there could be massive disenfranchisement, especially when technology fails, which we do know is a possibility. What do you think about that as a logical explanation as to why there needs to be something that looks like an alternative to electronic transmission?
You see, Form EC8A will always be there. Nobody is saying Form EC8A should not be there. It should always be there, where the results will be recorded and documented. Now we're talking about the transmission. Yes, we know in technology anything can happen, but why is it that we're always waiting, that we want to even make laws in anticipation that we are not even prepared to make sure that the technology works very well? Why don't we look at that side? Why are we looking, at the easy way out? Yes, definitely, there are the various technologies that can be adopted and can work very well. You don't even have to mince words. You don't have to even go any other way. There are different technologies, satellite and the rest. So what we are saying is that the mandate is that this result should be transmitted electronically, live. Now, when you cannot transmit, you still have the Form ECA. So in an event of any litigation, that is when you now fall back on the Form ECA. But if you refuse to transmit, that is where the problem is. Because there will be instances where there's no network glitches and deliberately you refuse to transmit because you want to tamper with the results. So you don't give room, for a thief to even steal for that 99 days and wait till just say 1 day for the owner. No.
Right.
You just start from there and say no. So whatever we need to do to improve on the technology, you do it. And then I like what David Mark said, argued. He said, look, why don't you leave that to INEC to decide? You understand? They will always find a way of getting around that. And so much resources is voted for elections and for all these preparations. So why can't we get it right? That is the challenge on the legislature and the electoral body itself.
And do you think there's quite ironic because some 4 years ago, give or take, INEC said, listen, we have the capability to go over 90% of our polling units. We have the technology, there's the infrastructure, and the capabilities are there. And then 4 years down the line, we're hearing lawmakers say, well, there are multiple states where you could have network blackouts and things like that. Does that surprise you that the electoral body is not the one making this case? It is the lawmakers that are making the case that technology could fail on election day?
Well, you can see me already smiling because you already know the end result. And I remember even the Nigerian Society of Engineers issued a statement and said, look, whatever that needs to be done can be done. And the Nigerian Society of Engineers have confirmed that they are ready and they are available to make sure that everything works out very well. So why are we not working with them? So Abdullahi, let's not give room for all those shenanigans.
And do you think, to use your words, shenanigans are happening by design? Do you think there's someone in a higher place or some group of people in power that do not want to see this happen?
Absolutely.
And what do you make of their motivation?
Absolutely. To manipulate and rig the election. You remember somebody said election is not a la carte. You understand? You must snatch, run, whatever you do with it. So I don't want to mention names, but you know what that means.
This is a manifestation, you think, of
exactly,
of these expressions.
Exactly. So sometimes you even rig the process systematically. You don't even come out, just to rig in a very raw or in a very crude form. So these are some of the ways that, these things can be deployed. But it won't succeed because Nigerians must rise and make sure that their votes count.
There are those who are on the progressive side who want electronic transmission, but who are also realistic about what to expect. They say that, listen, while this is a very transparent, progressive approach, to have IREF tell Nigerians every second of the day if they want to check any polling unit result, they can see it on the IREF without necessarily having to wait for this long, tedious, traditional way of transmitting the results. Some say that this is not the silver bullet that will deliver Nigeria free, fair, and credible elections. Do you believe there is a hyper-focus on electronic transmission, so much so that we're not looking at the bigger picture of all the other things that could go wrong on election day, away from just transmitting the election results?
Well, the transmission is one of the transparent ways that you can be guaranteed that the elections reflect the views and the true mandate given to whoever so is elected. So that is why there's this hype about it. But that's not the only way. You see, the political parties have a big role in terms of political education. The religious leaders have a big role also in terms of political education. INEC itself has a big role. They even have a complete department on that. The civil society organizations have a big role on that. So there are key stakeholders that have big roles in this to play. So the electronic transmission of the result is not an aim in itself, but it's just a means towards achieving that end. So that aside, these other factors that I've mentioned must be taken into cognizance. And Nigerians must begin to judge by our conscience. It's time past that you take a token or you are given money and you mortgage your right for the next 4 years or even beyond. Because some of the damages caused by bad governance goes beyond 4 years. It takes a long time for some of these things, for you to recover from some of the damages done by misgovernance. So it's a very serious issue that Nigerians themselves must take up very seriously and must fight to protect the votes.
We started the conversation by focusing on the drama, the protest, the tension that was building before this emergency session this week at the National Assembly, with the Nigerian Senate taking into consideration the temperature of the public and discussing it. And I premise the question against the backdrop of the participation of key political figures like Peter Obi and Rotimi Amici. Do you think when opposition figures attach themselves to these national issues, the issues become much more important, or is there a chance that it politicizes the entire conversation? Because this is not the first time we're witnessing this. You could go back, say, over 12 years ago, give or take 14 years ago, if my math serves me right, 2012, Occupy Nigeria, for instance, it has happened with regards to the subsidy situation. In the build-up to 2015, we saw a lot of protests by APC members who were basically the voice of Nigerians at that point, trying to drive home, calls for either better security, economic management, and things like that. Is that the new normal now, you think, where opposition figures have to be the ones to legitimize a national protest on any issue of policy or legislation?
Well, this had started happening, like you said, from the 2012
Occupy
Nigeria. Even the president, Tinubu himself, was a participant in that protest. So what are you going to say now? So, yes, before you could say it's the labor unions, the students, the market women, mostly those were the groups that used to participate. But when you also look at those periods, we were mostly under military rule. But now we're in a democracy. So the democratic participants must now take a center stage to know that, yes, this is what they desire, this is what they express, and those views also must be taken into cognizance. So it is normal and it is proper because democracy is being entrenched. It is taking root in Nigeria, and that is why you see those things happening. Why it wasn't happening before, like I told you, because we were mostly in civilian regime. Military regime. But of course, when the pressure by the opposition on the then President Goodluck Jonathan regime grew and expanded, that's why you saw those major figures, including the president today, participating. Even Muhammadu Buhari, late President Muhammadu Buhari, too participated in those protests. Tunde Bakari and Eko, Femi Falana, and a lot of them, they had all participated. Amechi, all of them. So it's not new. So,
and do you think they represent the voice of the majority? I mean, the protest was here in Abuja, but do you get the sense that this is the will of the people to have all of these demands met regarding the electoral amendment itself?
That is part of expressing the will of the people. They are part of the people. So they're also expressing their own will. I mean, you don't have to bring all Nigerians into one room and say everybody else should stop whatever he's doing, must come and participate in this protest. No. I can do even a one-man protest. You understand? I can take a placard, go anywhere I want to do. That is still a protest. I could still be expressing the views of millions of people that will not be able to come and do that. So you cannot use any barometer to say that it's either the views of Nigerians or it's not the views of Nigerians. But actually, it's the views of many who are not able to voice out, their opinions.
And let's talk about 2027 from the political party's point of view. Your national chairman was seen with former Vice President Atiku Abubakar recently, and the conversation is that from the understanding of the media, is Atiku Abubakar is trying to co-opt the ADP into his coalition. What can you tell the public about that meeting? And is there a chance that we could see the ADC under the shade of the African Democratic Congress in 2027? Are you exploring options of partnership, coalition, alignment, however you choose to describe it?
Well, the national chairman was very clear when he visited Atiku. And it's part of the political interaction, part of the democratic build-up process. The ADP has not gone into any alliance, because if that happens, the party will officially declare such a position. But we continue to interact, you understand? We continue to talk, and when you see me talking with even an APC man, it's not offensive. When you see me talking with an ADC man, it's not offensive, you understand? So that is part of the political process. So normally you must be talking, because by and large, it's possible anything can happen in democracy. You understand? So, but the party has not taken any official position, and when it does, it will make that very clear to Nigerians, and the national chairman will speak about that also. So, but I told you, this is just part of the interaction, you know, with Democrats.
And just before we let you go, you see how APC is positioning itself as a dominant ruling political party. Do you think of the APC as an unbeatable political party? What is your political calculation about 2027?
And that's a very interesting question. And I feel nothing. I feel not threatened at all. I see this as, you know, building a castle in the air. Because APC will be in for a shocker. Why do I say that? The average top political office holder does not have a feeling, does not know how the average Nigerian feels. And when you look at the massive movement, it's only those who are holding political offices. But a lot of them have lost grip with the people. They are not really with the people. It's only those who are holding offices that, in fact, some of them, they even either threaten or intimidate them that if you don't go with me, you lose your seat. Do you call that a grounded politics? No. You leave everybody and say, look, I'm going. This is the way I think. If you feel strongly, come with me. If you don't feel strongly, you can still stay in my government and serve Nigeria, because we are Nigeria and Nigeria is our country. Nigeria is not a country owned by a political party. Nigeria is a country owned by Nigerians. And we must look at Nigerians patriotically and nationalistically, not based on partisanship. Because Nigeria comes first, not the political parties.
So APC, as far as you're concerned, is not unbeatable?
It is not. It is not. And I can tell you that in 2027, they will be in for a shocker.
All right.
I just traveled recently, and I traveled by road a lot. I travel and, you know, I interact a lot with people down at the grassroots. And honestly, the kind of reactions that you hear, those big guys living there, they don't even get to hear this.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why I tell you that APC is beatable.
All right. Dr. Sani Dawop, we're going to have to leave it here for now. Thank you so much for the analysis, and it's good to see you again.
Thank you very much, Abdullahi, for inviting me.